right? Now, when we come to control of speech, obviously, uh, we have to discuss the control of the tongue. Before discussing the control of the tongue, in speech only, Prabhupada gives an example of toads and snakes. So, how a toad who keeps croaking only invites death, basically invites snakes. So, if a person is speaking mundane things, right? The only thing he's doing is he's just wasting his breath. I remember I think in class 9th or 10th, we had a Sanskrit book here in India, like NCRT book. And in that, there was a chapter on time, Kal. Uh, I think it was the end chapter. I don't remember now exactly. In that chapter, it was said that human lifespan is governed by our breaths, number of breaths that we take. How many breaths? If a person takes a lot of breaths, then everybody is given a fixed amount of breaths, right? If he utilizes them fast, then he'll die fast. So I related this point of uselessly speaking and not in the favor of Krishna to that point. If we are just uselessly speaking about mundane things, about politics, about gossip, Bollywood, Hollywood, this and that, then aren't we just wasting our breaths and not for the ultimate reason, not for Krishna? We're just wasting them and we're just, shortening our lifespan. So that is why Prabhupada says me in the purport, that's what I understood, that useless speaking invites death because first of all, you're not advancing spiritually, so you're already committing spiritual suicide. And then second of all, is that your wasteful speaking is utilizing your limited amount of breaths that you have, and then obviously you're going to die soon. Second item on the list, I talked about tongue, we'll come to that later. But second item on the list is mind. So Prabhupada very beautifully writes in the purport, he gives two divisions, uh, right? So as for the agitations of the flickering mind, they are divided into two divisions. The first is called avirodha priti, or unrestricted attachment. And the other is called virodha yukta krodh, anger arising from frustration. Adherence to the philosophy of the Mayavadis, belief in the fruitive result of the Karmavadis, which is Karma Kanda, and belief in plans based on materialistic desires are called avirodh priti. Jnanis, karmis, and materialistic plan makers generally attract the attention of conditioned souls. But when the materialists cannot fulfill their plans and when their devices are frustrated, they become angry. Frustration of material desires produce anger. Um, so this frustration of material desire producing anger, there's a very beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says that if desires are not, you know, basic, we read this in the class, I'm not quoting it here, but where if a man has a lot of desires and if the desires gets frustrated, then the next thing to come is anger, right? Delusion, anger. So what Prabhupada writing here is that the agitations of the mind you can basically divide into two. So avirodh priti, like unrestricted attachment. Either the mind will just have unrestricted attachment to things, and when that unrestricted attachment is not fulfilled, it will move to Virod Yukt Krodh, right? So that is what Prabhupada are explaining, that generally a spiritualist, he might be or a person in general might be attracted to materialistic plan making. There are so many success gurus nowadays on LinkedIn, on social media, on the internet, on YouTube, right? And they tell you all these plans, how to become a crorepati or a billionaire or millionaire from 5 rupees, from 50 rupees. I had 50 rupees in the past, and now I have 50 crore rupees. So they have all their schemes and plans. I invested in stock market. Somebody will say, no, 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 buy real estate. Somebody will say, no, 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 you need to actually buy gold and keep it in your locker and then sell it. So all of these plans are there, and our minds usually go towards uh, Avirodh Preeti. They're like, oh, money. We have Avirodh Preeti for money, right? I have. So so our minds naturally get attracted to that, and we're like, oh, we'll try to do these plans. Um, and we just go towards them. Let's say we invest the money in stock markets on somebody's advice, and then we lose. And then we'll become angry. We'll criticize the government. We'll criticize everyone. We'll criticize the speaker that he is false. And then instead of realizing our mistakes, we'll just find another person. You're like, no, 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 maybe he was wrong. We'll find another one who's better at it and we'll follow his advice after we've lost money. And this also very nicely connects to point number one about atonement, where let's talk about how elephant bathes, right? And Prabhupada gives category of first class, second class, third class, and fourth class people. Fourth class is we are. He gives third class. So we don't learn, right? And in all of this, obviously, we are also wasting our speech. We are just speaking nonsense things. So that is what Prabhupada writes. And this is materialistic plans. We also get attracted to Gyanis because, as Ambrish Prabhu once said in the class, that when you listen to these Gyanis or these gurus online, right? They talk a lot. It's like uh, murmura is what we call it here, right? A puffed rice. So they talk a lot, and it's like chewing that puffed rice again and again and again and again and again. But when you ultimately swallow it, you're not satisfied. It was just enough for you to fill your mouth. So that is what Gyanis give you. And once you're not satisfied, you obviously will become frustrated and angry with life. You'll become, even some people who have some initial faith in spirituality, and they get attracted to these people. And once they're not fulfilled, they just blame entire spirituality for it. They won't retrospect, they won't introspect and look at maybe their spiritual process was not right, or maybe we should connect to another guru. They will just blame spirituality in general because everybody will wants to get want everybody wants a reason to blame spirituality, right? That this does not work, this does not work, let me stick to my materialistic agendas. But that won't happen, but this case won't happen if, let's say, they go to a doctor and the doctor gives them some medicine and the medicine won't work. In this case, instead of criticizing the doctor, what they'll do is, okay, the doctor is bad, let me go try another doctor because I have a disease. They have a very big idea of the disease and urgency of the disease that they have, and hence they switch doctors instead of criticizing doctor and leaving their faith in allopathy medicine. They're like, oh, let me find another doctor. But if a person gets disappointed in spirituality, they're not like, oh, let me find some other way. If this does not work for me, they'll just give up on spirituality entirely because the urgency of the disease is not there. The material disease. That was a tangent. Sorry. Okay. Then, as I said about this connecting to our first point, I'll touch base on that, which is I'll read it what Prabhupada are writing. Real atonement involves coming to real knowledge. And for this, there is a standard process. When one follows a regulated hygienic process, he does not fall sick. A human being is meant to be trained according to certain principles to revive his original knowledge. Such a methodical life is described as tapasya. One can be gradually elevated to the standards of real knowledge or Krishna consciousness by practicing austerity and celibacy, brahmacharya, by controlling the mind, by controlling the senses, by giving up one's position in charity, by being avowedly truthful, by keeping clean, and by practicing yogasanas. However, if one is fortunate enough to get the association of a pure devotee, he can easily surpass all the practices for controlling the mind by the mystic yoga process simply by following the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness, which are, and Prabhupada writing there, refraining from illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling, and by engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master. This easy process is being recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami. Right. So, in the start, we discussed about controlling the six items: speech, mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals, and we are yet to touch on some of them. But we might get this thought that it's so hard to just control on one. Prabhupada mentioning six here, right? Just to control on my speech, there's an urge to speak always. And then one of them is mind, which is a very popular question in our spiritual circles, how to control the mind. And Prabhupada are just mentioning that as one of the items that we need to control in order, to progress. But then he gives a hack here, as we call it in our language, Gen Z, that there's a hack here. And the hack is that Prabhupada writes, obviously, you can, do tapasya, follow a very hygienic process, and hygienic process. And he's giving an example of a human being who does not fall sick. He follows a regulated hygienic process. He will not fall sick. So similarly, if a human being follows principles like tapasya, and he's following brahmacharya, and he's always speaking the truth, and yoga asanas and all of that, so he can then control the mind and the senses. But as we all know, there's a very famous verse in Gita that Arjun's saying that it's very tough for me. Please give me an easy way. When Krishna says that sit like this on a pusha grass, then a mat, and then you need to focus on this. And Arjun says, no, not practical. Sorry, not for me. Uh, so similarly, that was Dwapar Yuga. This is Kali Yuga, and we are the beings of Kali Yuga. So here Prabhupada are giving a hack. He's saying that if somehow you get in touch with a pure devotee, right, you can bypass all of this. And if you follow the four regulative principles alongside being engaged in the service of the Lord. So not just being engaged in the service of the Lord, and not just following the four regulative principles together, right? So if you do them together, then you can easily bypass all of this and then ultimately reach your goal. And this is the exact point, exact process which even the author, Srila Rupa Goswami, is recommending. He's recommending that he's not recommending go sit in a jungle and do tapasya. He's recommending that you associate with a pure devotee and under his guidance serve the Supreme and also follow the four regulative principles. Now, at first, when you read, so this is one of my realizations that after reading the verse, I thought, well, Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, and Jiva Vegam, controlling. So I thought that isn't like at first my idea was not at first, but on second, third read, it was like that aren't we talking too much about controlling about ourselves? Now, why am I saying this? Is because in yoga there is usually yam, niyam, pranayam, asan, all of that in the yoga practices, right? So there is yam and niyam. So when we read through this, when I read through this, I was like, wait, yam and niyam means do's and don'ts, right? And here we are discussing something that is bhakti related. So if this is bhakti related, why do we have yams and niyams? Isn't this more aligned to the Ashtang process or the yogic process, where we need to do something and do not do something, right? Yams and niyams, like control your anger, control your speech. It might feel like that. At least it felt like that to me, that, oh, we are doing some yams and niyams. But actually, it's not, because these things, when Srila Rupa Goswami are writing that control your speech, control your mind, he's not just writing, and this is what Prabhupada explains in the purport also. He's not just writing these things to tell you to control them. Like Maun, Prabhupada gives an example of Mayavadis doing Maun, right? To just control your speech and remain silent. What Srila Rupa Goswami is saying is that you engage these things in the service of Krishna. So, for example, you have speech, you have mind, you have anger. You can engage these things in the service of Krishna. So these things are anukul to our bhakti, to Krishna consciousness process, right? And hence these yams and niyams will help us advance and progress, which like not yams and niyams, but these regulative principles will help us advance in our bhakti, because they will help us engage ourselves in the service of Krishna. So that was one doubt that I had. Now, secondly, before I go to my other points that I've written, I want to just touch upon the point of anger that Prabhupada have mentioned. So usually when we imagine a spiritual person, if we say to somebody that think of a spiritual person and what are they doing, most probably they will think of a pacifist, a person who does not do anything, who smiles all the time, right? And who's happily, welcoming everybody. Who will, if you slap him on one cheek, he will take the slap on another, right? That kind of a person. But nobody will imagine Arjun or Hanuman on the battlefields, right? Where Arjun is shooting arrows and killing people, and when the people are his kinsmen, and nobody will imagine Hanumanji, who is destroying the entire Lanka for his master. We won't think of them as spiritual persons. But what Srila Prabhupada is saying here is that, and what we obviously know is that Hanumanji is a very big devotee of Lord Ram, right? And a devotee is in constant remembrance of the Lord. As Ambarish Prabhu says, that there are two principles of bhakti. Um, Always remember Krishna and never forget him, right? So obviously, Lord Hanuman has mastered this principles because he's a very big bhakta. So the point being that Prabhupada says in the purport that even anger can be utilized in the service of the Lord. How? Well, if you're angry on people who blaspheme the Lord or his devotees, and you utilize your anger in that way, then definitely you're using your anger, you've dovetailed it in the service of Krishna. So that is one way that we can utilize anger in. And if this is not channelized, then obviously we get anger issues, and then we need to go to anger management therapies and all of that stuff. And then uh, being angry just is a very bad thing, and you lose a lot rather than gaining something in the moment. You just always lose. Anger is one thing wherein you can be absolutely sure that once you've exhibited it, you've lost some or the other thing for sure, even if for the moment it seems like you haven't lost. If you, like, sometimes we might think that in an authority we can be angry to our juniors. Well, if it's not for Krishna, is not for defending or protecting philosophy, or in juniors in terms of political organizations or corporate organizations or any organization, the respect and the trust right then and there is broken in some or the other way, right? So yeah. Then after anger, Prabhupada are mentioning tongue, belly, and genitals. So first we'll touch tongue. So obviously the tongue, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's statement, "Bhalana khaibe, bhalana paribe," is given in the purport that one should not eat too much palatable dishes. And Prabhupada even writes that if one prepares very tasty dishes, so that after offering them to Krishna, he can eat it. So he's not thinking about offering them to Krishna while he's preparing them or she's preparing them. He's thinking about satisfying his own senses afterwards. Then that's also a form of sense gratification of the tongue. So it's no longer prasad because you're not thinking of Krishna while preparing of it, and you're not dedicating it to Krishna, right? You're thinking of satisfying your own senses while you're preparing it. So that's on tongue. And Prabhupada says that these three items, tongue, belly, and genitals, they fall in one line, right? Tongue, belly, and genitals, one below the other. So he says if the tongue is controlled, if your urge basically to eat palatable dishes or to eat certain kinds of dishes, if that is controlled, then obviously your belly can be controlled. You can give your belly what it requires, the nutrition, right? We often forget that food is just fuel to the body. We Whatever tastes good, we eat it. One very big example of this I've recently come across is I don't know if you get that in New Zealand. I'm not sure. Momos. So we have momos, something called as momos in India. I don't know if you've heard about that. So that is like I think WHO or some very big organization had a study on it. It's the most unhealthy thing on the planet after jalebis, I think, or maybe before jalebi. I don't know. It's the most unhealthy thing, right? But if you come to Delhi or if you are anywhere in India, right, you will see these street vendors selling momos and people eating them. We have even restaurant chains, not restaurant chains, we have food chains for just dedicated to this one food item, momos, which is the most unhealthy thing. It's just steamed maida and vegetables which are not even like, obviously they are not some very great people who will put all sort of vitamin C vitamins in there. They'll just put some cheap cabbage there, right, or something, carrots, which are like the worst carrots. So you eat them. You don't think what is going inside your body. You don't like that. You like what's on the tongue, right? So bhala na khaibe, bhala na paribe. So you're just eating bhalo, matlab you're just eating good stuff, and you're not thinking what will happen to the body. And that is one reason that one of the most developed countries in the world, America, the obesity rates are so high because there's so much abundance of everything. You can just go have food that your body does not even require, right? And even on the other spectrum, this is unhealthy. On the other spectrum, nowadays we are having people in America, at least an average adult is consuming more protein than is required for his body, right? So even if you are a gym goer in America, usually people are eating more protein because just because they have access to beef, they have access to all kinds of meat, they will just eat it, right? And again, not think about what the body requires. But at the end of the day, we need to think of this body as a machine, and it needs fuel, and the food is the fuel, nothing more than that. And even Prabhupada says that. And what best if the food is of fuel is offered to Krishna, sanctified, purified, and then you eat it, right? So coming back to tongue, belly, and genital. So obviously your belly is controlled, and then the genital. From the point of genitis, Prabhupada says that, and I think Ambrish Prabhu has also mentioned this in the class, that there is no restriction on sexual affairs or anything. There is a restriction on illicit sex. So Ambrish Prabhu said, and Prabhupada says that you can have thousands and thousands of children. Nobody cares if you are capable enough of bringing them up, or giving them Krishna consciousness. Because in I think there was one class on Bhagavatam where this verse was discussed, that one should not become a good father if he cannot give Krishna consciousness to his children. He should not become a father, or not be into any position of leadership if he cannot impart that Krishna consciousness to his followers. Sorry. So um so on the point of restraint, right? So Prabhupada says that the urges of genitals can be controlled if you utilize them in the process of uh, giving birth to children who are Krishna conscious, who you will bring up to become Vaishnavas, right? Who will be brought up in this philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So that was an order control. Like I just covered speech, mind, anger, tongue, and belly and genitals. Sorry. Right. Now, some observations that I had made on this. So I was recently, I have mentioned this in my realization class also last time, and Sunday realization class, and I'll like to touch on this very important point over here because it's I like to bridge something between science and spirituality, whatever I can find, biology also this time. So I mentioned about this anterior mid cingulate cortex, right? AMCC in our last class. So scientists have figured out that AMCC is the seat of willpower, basically. Based on the size of your AMCC, that's how much of a willpower somebody will have. And as we age, people usually say that the size of the brain decreases, right? What the most, like, if let's say your brain decreases by X amount, 90% of that X is your AMCC, right? And AMCC, it's not been established, but scientists are also looking at it in the terms of your willingness to live, because old people have so much less of it that scientists are thinking that maybe the size of AMCC is also related to your will to live, because it's related to will in general, right? So coming back to the point of will, now obviously, to in like for a general practitioner like me, a new neophyte, right? To follow any of the principles. Let's say if I want to control my speech from today, I made a decision. Now to come up on that decision, I need to have some will, right? I cannot just promise in weekend classes that, oh, Prabhuji, Sanjeev Prabhu, Sheetal Prabhu, from today onwards, I'm going to control my speech. You'll not hear one bit of gossip from my mouth. Only I'll speak Krishna Katha and I'll preach. I can say that, but will I follow up on that? Am I being fruitful to any one of the parties, me, yourself? No. But if I say, okay, Prabhuji, I'll try to control, I'll actively try to not gossip, I'll actively try to not discuss politics, if I was discussing 100, I'll maybe try to come to 95. Well, that is a more practical thing, at least for me. But even saying that, there has to be a will. When I'm in a social circle and there is a discussion and I have to control, I have to utilize my willpower to do something or not do something, basically, right? It's free will. This is where, according to science, AMCC comes into the picture, right? That the size of that determines whether you'll actually go through your actions or not. And the bigger it is, the more willpower that you will have. Okay. So, and there is this thing called neuroplasticity in science, where basically you can basically mold your brain in a simple sense based on your actions, right? So what that means is your AMCC is neuroplastic. So if you keep on doing hard stuff, for example, if at start you feel hard to wake up at 4 a.m. for Mangla Aarti, right? And but you're one day, no, I need to wake up, this is the right thing to do, I will wake up at 4 a.m. And you do the hard thing, go through the entire process. Next day also you go, third day also you go, and you find it very hard, it's not easy. Well, what people forget when they watch senior devotees, or this I used to forget, and then my mind changed. When they watch senior devotees going through this cycle of waking up at 4 a.m., sometimes we forget that, oh, it might be very easy for them. That's why they wake up at 4. In time, it will become very easy for me to also wake up at 4, and then I'll do my Mangala Aarti. But maybe sometimes that's not the case. Maybe senior devotees have had a rough night last night, or a rough day last night, and they're tired, but they will still wake up, as Ambrish Prabhu mentioned yesterday, last week's WhatsApp message, right? Even if it's hard, you are doing it. So that is what increases your AMCC size, and the more it is, the more willpower. Why I'm talking about all of this is because, in general sense, if you keep on doing hard things, which let's say you're trying to control you're trying to do mon or any other thing, right? You're doing hard stuff, you're controlling your speech, your this AMCC is growing in size. Obviously, if you're doing yum yum, and once the AMCC grows, this willpower grows, obviously you have the willpower then to, maybe if you're sitting down to meditate or focusing on a single point, the willpower that you have developed will help you concentrate also in your attention span. So if you keep on doing hard stuff, your AMCC is growing, and then it will help you in your whatever you want. If you want to just sit down and not be disturbed by your thoughts, you can do that. Well, I then related that to yogic processes. Isn't that what yoga does? Makes us do hard stuff like controlling your speech, just be not controlling as in dovetailing it to Krishna, just remaining silent. You want to speak, but just mourn, right? And doing yogasanas, doing hard stuff, maybe going to Himalayas in the cold and standing on one leg, all of that hard stuff, which your body does not want to do. So that at the end, you can focus your mind on Paramatma, or on, yeah, that is what it forces us to do. And it's a process, right? But for bhaktas in devotional life, right? All of this can be, and obviously, one thing about AMCC, which is very important and which is the highlight of this discussion, is it's neuroplastic. If it can expand, it can shrink as well. One day of you not waking up at 4 a.m. will just shrink back the size of your anterior mid cingulate cortex to normal. Although you've been waking up at 4 a.m. for 10 years, but one day you don't do it, you're back to normal, your willpower is reduced. And from that day, you'll start feeling lazy and, oh, why to wake up again? It's just let it go. So the yogic practices, as we know, it's very, flickering. It's very fleeting, basically, right? That one day you're not focusing your mind, you're not standing on one leg, or you're not controlling your mon or whatever, you're back to normal. But in bhakti, for a bhakta, All of this can be bypassed, right? How? We've talked about it before. Following just four principles, and more important than that, being in the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, right? So, what I've written here is that doing all of this austerity, this can all become easy, and it becomes easy just due to two things: to the mercy of Vaishnavas and Krishna Kripa. When you are diligently following this process, Krishna says that I from within will give you the knowledge, right? I will destroy the darkness born of ignore, ignorance born of darkness inside of you, and I will aham agyana jam tamaha. So I will give you knowledge from within, right? How to reach me. And this entire process of following so many things that can Prabhupada and Rupa Goswami, and they have, summarized it in such sweet way that at least in the start of it, it feels easy for us beings. That four principles, and that too, you can. It's not like full restriction. You can indulge, but in the service of Krishna. And obviously, if you get the mercy of Vaishnavas, that is paramount. If you're following, doing service to spiritual master, or if you're doing service to Krishna. Now, coming to the second point, towards the conclusion now, is that the mind, as we've read, from our classes, that mind is the storehouse of desires. Vishnu always says this, and mind is the storehouse of desires. And the senses are the ones that drag the mind there. So if I go to a sweet shop, the first thing that I get is a whiff or a smell of the sweets there, right? And then once I have processed that, my mind is like, oh, I want that. It just wants that based on our past habits, right? And if we have the willpower to control ourselves by practice, then obviously we can deny that. Oh no, I don't want that. Even if it's very tempting, I don't want that. But if it is not, then what happens? Our mind is agitated. What is that? Avirod Priti, right? Avirod Priti. We have Avirod Priti, unrestricted attachment for that, let's say jalebi in this case, right? So Rabdi Jalebi, we are Rabdi Jalebi, we are chanting that name in our head. Oh, I want that, I want that, I want that. And once your mind is that, it's just the storehouse of desires, then that is passed to your intelligence to somehow figure out a way to get it. If you have the money, well, your intelligence will just say, well, open up your phone or card or cash, just pay it and get it, right? Why to get it? Well, just because just the mind wants it. If you don't have the money, the intelligence says, well, figure out a way to steal it, right? Maybe shoplift it or do something about it, because that's the role of the intelligence, right? So all these desires, all these vague that are arising within us, this verse is telling us that we need to have a check on these vagues by following this process. And I just wanted to touch on how this vagues in life govern us and direct our actions, even after and sometimes we don't even realize that, right? And this is how it happens. It's just basically we are like zombies on autopilot when our mind wants something. So we just go for it. If our intelligence is not uh, dovetailed in following Krishna conscious process. And obviously, Prabhupada says this, that an itch, uh, a desire, if there is a wound, and there is a desire to itch, if you itch it, it will just become worse, and you will just want to itch it more. And that's the process. If somebody is not, controlling their senses, if they go for it once, it is not that the desire is satiated or satisfied. You will want to have at it again. You'll want to have at it again, and this will just worsen the itch, as what Prabhupada says. So the solution, Prabhupada says, tolerate the urges, tolerate the vega, and obviously follow the process. One thing that you know in the last section, it is mentioned in his Anuvritti explanation of Updeshamrit. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes that our material identification creates three kinds of urges: the urge to speak, the urge or demands of the mind, and the demands of the body. When a living entity falls victim to these three types of urges, his life becomes inauspicious. One who practices resisting these demands or urges is called tapasvi, or one who practices austerity. By such tapasya, one can overcome victimization by the material energy, the external potency of the supreme personality of Godhead. We are like victims here. So, supreme personality of Godhead. That's still where the purport is. And I made a point that Prabhupada writing here victimization by the material energy. We are like victims here, but we don't realize. We think we are the heroes or controllers, but actually we are the victims. So, in this material world, we might think that, oh, we are the hero of our own story, that there's so many movie dialogues about it. But Prabhupada is stating that, well, you're not any hero, not even close to that, not even a controller. You're a victim. You're just a victim. You're victimized by the external potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So understand the situation that you're in, that you're just a victim, and try to recover from that situation by following a process. And I've touched upon this point, but this was the last point that I wrote, that there are so many do's and don'ts. But if one can take the shelter of a pure devotee and simply follow the instructions, he's in safe hands. Just going through if I check, missed any points, otherwise I'm done. Okay, yeah, just like I think shloka is mentioned in the purport, and it's very beautiful about the punah punash charvita charvitanam. So I'll just recite that Prabhuji once and then I'm done. I'll just read the translation of that. Matirna Krishne paratah swato va मिथो अभिपद्यते ग्रहवृतानाम् आदान्त गोभैर्विशतां तमिश्रम् पुनः पुनश्चर्विता चर्वण पुनः पुनश्चर्विता चर्वणानाम्. For those who have decided to continue their existence in this material world for the gratification of their senses, there is no chance of becoming Krishna conscious, not by personal endeavor, by instruction from others, or by joint conferences. They are dragged by the unbridled senses into the darkest region of ignorance, and thus they madly engage in what is called chewing the chew. Hare Krishna. Thank you, bro.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Parth Prabhu, for your nice realization. Yes, you summarized whole purport and put forward your points. The first observation or first question of mine is that when you talked about that following the do's and don'ts, and yam, niyam, dhyan, pranayam, asan, all that till samadhi with the yoga system looks similar to vacho vegam, and what we, these are the rules and regulations as well. So, but the objective is different. So why are we doing it? Means the yogis, they do it because on the dint of their penance and austerity, they try to achieve that state, the samadhi. But bhakti is different. Bhakti is because we depended on Krishna. We're doing it for love for Krishna. So the objective is different. So in that way, we follow these rules and regulations because they are favorable to bhakti. They are favorable to what we want to achieve. Love of Godhead. But so that is the big difference on that. And the other one is that you talked about AMCC. I'm not very expert in it, and the way you explained it, it seems like it is a material science, and they, like you said, that if you follow something, your willpower grow, but even one day if you don't follow it, then it shrink back. But in case of when we see the life or character of pure devotees, it's not the case with them. Or the devotees. Maybe like everyone is not the same level, but yeah. So the more we do it, you're right. The more we do it, we get Krishna's blessing, and we pray to Krishna to so we can overcome all these difficulties in following our rules and regulations. Our you know. So yeah, I'm not very sure about AMCC. We can ask about that to His Grace Amrish Prabhu. And the other one is that in sloka, in this sloka, everything is described as Vega, but Srila Prabhupada translated differently. The tongue, belly, genitals, he translated urges. Minds, he translated demands. And anger is actions. So that also we need to be understand why Srila Prabhupada translated this like this. So it means these like vacho, like jiva, and belly and genitals, they have urges. Urges means they comes like big waves, and they like break everything. Because when urge comes, as you given the example of I want to eat rabdi and jalebi, so urge came, so I just want to eat it. But if you tolerate that, as Srila Prabhupada said, that if you tolerate that, then it will go down, but it will come back again. So it means it's coming, going, coming, going, coming, going, but you have to tolerate it. And then the demands of mind, because minds always demands, as you said that, okay, I like this, I don't like this, and I like this color, I don't like this color. Yeah, I like this person, I don't like this person. So he's always demanding, okay, I want to do this, okay, take me there. And then he wants to perform anything, then tell intelligence how to do it. So it's like a small child, you have to manage it. He's demanding, give me this, give me that, give me that, but you manage it. So, and then the anger, in anger we always, there is action. So when we are angry, we do something and then we regret, oh, I should have been not done that. So anger is, so controlling anger is like you don't do anything, no action. So then you can control. But yeah, all these, when we read the translation, so, and we have to pay attention that what Srila Prabhupada exactly translated to. So, and the other thing was, you talked about that our brain shrinks when we grow old, and all that. This is material science. But again, when we see the example of pure devotees, Srila Prabhupada was old, and he were translating in his last time as well. Like he was translating, so his mind is sound. I was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto, the Bhishma Dev pastimes, and Srila Prabhupada explained that pure devotees' mind is sound even on the deathbed, because he's always absorbed in Krishna. So yes, I don't know how that fit in material science, that brain shrinks, but pure devotee's mind is still sound. So he understands and he knows what's right, what's wrong. And we see the examples of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev, their pastimes in the last. So yeah, these couple of points I observed probably. So, but we can ask Sheetal Prabhu's here. So if he got any questions.
Thank you, actually, Parth Prabhu, for your very nice presentation. Sorry, actually, I was joining after a kind of a break. I was away, so I kind of catching up. But yeah, but that interesting point, that AMCC, I never heard this before, first time. So it's good information as a material science. But yeah, I kind of agree. Actually, means I never personally expressed that. Maybe I may have in the past, but I wouldn't say that that will be applicable to everything, because we are actually trying to follow the devotional this path for many years now, and there always been breaks. For some reason we go away for a while, but we always feel motivated to come back. It's like now I actually didn't come up for last couple of weeks. Now I don't feel like to come at all. Doesn't I? Or I don't feel like that. Rather, I will feel I missed out. So I had to catch up. So you're right. Maybe actually, it may be means I can see, how that has actually been postulated, and I can see that actually sometime like habit, like smoking. So somebody when gives up smoking, they may be very consistent for 6 months, and then there is one incident actually, maybe somebody, they slip and actually this one smoke I will have, and again they actually continue. It's very hard to come back. So yeah, it may be applicable in those things, but as Sanjay Prabhu also said, it may not be applicable to devotees. And I think I remember one quote from Srila Gurudev, His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj, that it may be applicable to brain as well. He said that actually when we use our senses in service of the Krishna, so that basically devotional service, so Krishna actually extend the life of those senses, and which is I have seen by practical example. Srila Prabhupada is the greatest example. Srila Gurudev. So they didn't lose their mind, but they don't have any issues understanding things. Normally what we say, with ordinary people when they get old, after 60 they say there is a phenomenon. They say that actually they kind of lose their intelligence, try to lose their intelligence, but that we don't see when we look at the actually pure devotees of the Lord. Rather they actually older they get, the wiser they get. So maybe it may be applicable to same. If you're using your body, your senses in service of the Krishna, who's actually Rishikesh, the master of senses, and obviously he's master of all the material bodies as well, because it is his own energy. He may extend the lifespan of all those senses. So yeah, that might be applicable there when we look at the pure devotees. But it may be very much true for materialistic people. Yes, all these changes we can see it. I have seen it, when you get older and older and you're still very much attached to materialistic things, or you're addicted to intoxication, all that. That is actually very much applicable. So yes, thank you, Prabhuji. I think just 2 minutes left for the main program, so I will stop here. And Sanjay Prabhu, maybe you want to conclude that.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you, Srila Prabhu. Yes, so we actually, yeah, it's only 2 minutes left. So for next program, we should take 2 minutes break and come back. But thank you, Past Prabhu, and thank you, Devotees, to join the program. Next week also, I think Mayuresh Prabhu's turn, but well, maybe Shital Prabhu can. Is he still busy, Prabhuji, or he can come next week?
I will follow up, Prabhuji. I think I need to get his feedback. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll actually ask him to put the post. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay. Anyway, so we'll conclude now, and we'll meet again 1 minute time or 2 minutes time. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Shila Prabhupada. Jai Shila Gurudev.
Thank you
Jai.
very much.